Essence magazine once described Mariah Carey as America's most misunderstood black woman. In this series, we'll be examining that statement. Hi, I'm Diva Talk and welcome to the channel. It's hard to explain. Inherently, it's just always been strange. Neither here nor there. Always somewhat out of place everywhere. Somewhere halfway. Feeling there's no one completely the same. These are the lyrics of Mariah Carey's song Outside. It highlights so well the complicated obsession with Mariah's race during her debut.
Oh, this is a white girl, she sounds black. Oh no, it's a black girl, but she isn't, she's white. No, she isn't, I think she's mine, I think she's one, I think she's a... So, what are you?
Notice Oprah doesn't ask Mariah who she is, but what she is.
My mother is Irish, a person first and foremost. My mother is Irish, my father is Venezuelan and black.
Okay.
So I'm the
You have heard it here. Would y'all please stop discussing this girl's race?
Billboard notes publications from the LA Daily News to Playboy and the Herald Sun described her as white throughout 1990. The Australian Herald proclaimed she was the new white soul singer of our time, dismissing one half of her family background. Some in the media declared Mariah was a second-class Whitney Houston. There were heated discussions regarding a supposed white woman singing a more soulful version of music, especially when many black artists in the 80s were forced to sing pop. Mariah became increasingly frustrated, yet the media misrepresented this as an emotional overreaction. Now, to understand the complexities of these matters, we need to look at the cultural context. The 80s had just ended. During this time, the relationship between race and music, particularly MTV, was problematic. The king of pop himself, Michael Jackson, initially was rejected from MTV. The channel claimed songs like Billie Jean were just not rock enough to be aired. Was this a cover for not being white enough? To use rock as an example is, well, it's suspect, given the founding fathers of rock and roll such as Chuck Berry and Little Richard were iconic black artists.
That's what's happening. We're being sat in the back of the bus television style.
President of CBS Records eventually gave MTV an ultimatum. Play Jackson's records or we'll pull every single artist we have from your station. CBS were successful, and Michael Jackson eventually dominated not just MTV, but the world. And in another sphere going on at the same time, you had veteran soul divas like Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight, Patti LaBelle. They were all moving towards a commercial pop sound. Why? In order to survive. And often with great success. Patti scored her first #1 since Lady Marmalade, duetting with Michael McDonald on My Own. And Aretha launched an enormous major comeback into mainstream music.
Best R&B vocal performance, female. Aretha Franklin, Freeway of Love.
Also going on in the same period was the one and only, The Voice, Whitney Houston. The soon-to-be legend was specifically instructed to downplay her gospel-orientated vocals on her studio recordings. Clive Davis from Arista wanted Houston to have a crossover sound that didn't alienate the majority white audience by sounding too soulful. And as a result, Whitney soared to the top of the charts, not once, not twice, but 7 times. 7 consecutive #1s, a record that has never been broken. And yet, simultaneously, she was booed at the Soul Train Awards for sounding too white.
Friction at the Soul Train Awards. Where does that come from? For those of you who don't know,
They boo me at Soul Train Awards. I don't really know what it's about, but I think that I've got a lot of flack, about I sing too white, or I sing white or something like that, I don't either, but I do sing the way God intended for me to sing, and I'm using what He gave me, and I'm using it to the best of my ability.
It was an era when singing pop was almost essential to survive. And then, in the summer of 1990, as the heat began to rise on a new decade, a debut single was released that shattered the status quo of pop and replaced it with a far more diverse sound. Although the big hair of the decadent 80s remained, The corporate pop sound of MTV was crumbling like sand under the weight of a soulful exploration, and although Mariah was not the first to do so, she quickly became the champion of runs and riffs and a strong R&B influence into her music. And unlike Whitney, who often ad-libbed more soulful interpretations live in her concerts, Mariah's debut contained these sounds and were being sent to radio. The times were changing. The media zoned in on this. Mariah was helping to bring the triumphant sounds of urban music that dominated the 70s from funk to disco and delivered into a new decade. But there was one massive problem.
I don't feel white.
Mariah was not this fresh new white soul singer for a new generation. And to understand this, and why it's so fundamentally wrong, we need to go back to Mariah's youth and to a childhood dominated by trauma, and in part 2 we'll be looking at just this very thing.